We have with us Assistant Secretary Roberto, Robbie Alabado, and he's not only a relatively, well, not old, but relatively new hand, reliable hand in the tourism sector, but he's also an urban planner. He was city planner for Davao for 3 years and worked closely with Mayor Sara Duterte. So you know who my new friend is. So anyway, throw in his experience going around the country and parts of the world, and we have with us an advocate for stronger private sector participation in building smart cities, going digital under the framework of sustainability and diversification. Good morning, Asik Robbie.
Yes, good morning. With my age, I just look young.
He looks exactly like his photo.
Yeah,
That's what I'm telling you. So you have any opening remarks for us?
Yes, okay. Good morning to everyone. For the Department of Tourism, we are very excited to be, for the first time in a few years, we have been invited as a vital a member of the economic development cluster of the cabinet. So we're sitting now in a powerful group within the cabinet. This means that they are now looking at tourism as a strategic or a driver of the economic development of the Philippines. And this is what we're saying right now. We are contributing about 13% of the GNP of the Philippines. And yesterday, when we were talking about what would be our requests on the budget, our Secretary Berna, was saying, look, they have to realize that we are contributing a lot to the economy, so the national government has to provide us with the resources that we need so that we can contribute more to our economy. So I think tourism right now is a booming industry here in the Philippines.
Thank you for segueing into one of the challenges for the tourism department. And as we discussed, our neighbors are attracting as much as 5 times more tourists than we do, like Thailand, for instance. What steps are we taking to catch up? And I know one of the integral problems would be infrastructure. How are we addressing that, sir?
Okay, yes. For the first time in the Philippines, we have a 7.1 million visitors. And that's, if you're going to compare that to the others, it would be just small. Others are saying 35 million, they have 40 million. But we have to also consider that the Philippines, actually 98% or maybe even 99% of our tourists, international tourists, come by plane. In other countries...
You're saying 99. So
yes. They come to the Philippines by plane, but on the others, they can access via land. Yeah. So if you're from one ASEAN country, then you have a next door neighbor, and that next door neighbor would just a person from that neighbor would say, "I want to spend the night on the next country." Just cross an hour or maybe 2 hours cross-border, then that's a statistic. So you're already one. Here in the Philippines, you have to travel hours by plane.
And even within the Philippines,
yes,
you do have to do that. It's not everything. I mean,
yes,
a lot of places are not reachable by land travel. But Asik Robbie, so you have, well, that's not entirely up to your ambit, but the accommodations.
Yes.
Well, do we have any? How big is our backlog, or how small is our backlog in that?
We're looking at we need more investments on the accommodation side, because we are looking at big ticket projects coming in. One of our main thrusts would be MICE. That's meetings, incentives, conventions, and exhibits. We would like this bulk of tourists to come to the Philippines, and we are bidding for big ticket items. Maybe by 2020 or 2021, we would like the UNWTO to hold their World Convention here. So we are looking at world conventions coming, or international conventions coming to the Philippines. History. Did you know that way back in the 1970s, the Philippines was considered to be the first Asian nation to have an international convention center? We were the first. That's PICC, as you see it right now. And then, right now, a lot, or all over, or surrounding the Philippines are really, really large convention centers because they see that the bulk of the tourists may come from the MICE. So we're looking at that, but we cannot really get this MICE market if we do not have their accommodation. They may have their venue where they could meet, but where they're going to sleep. So we see that looking at Manila, I come from Davao, we're looking at Cebu, we're looking at a lot of areas that may be ready for MICE, for getting these conventions, but apparently the accommodation, the hotels needed for these visitors or these tourists are not yet there. So we cannot just bid without having the whole supply chain ready here in the Philippines. That means also the airports. But fortunately for the airports, we now have a lot of new airports. Like recently, Bohol, Panglao, then Clark is there, Cebu is there. So even though
Davao
also has plans for expansion. So we are getting all of these infrastructures. As I said, almost 99% of our tourists would come from by plane. So we are now readying all of these infrastructures, the airports, to accommodate these flights coming in.
So we're getting the analog world ready, ASEC. But then moving on to the digital world, we're getting more and more Chinese visitors, as you can see. And then, how they're very comfortable in being cashless. The QR codes, WeChats. How equipped are our merchants now to handle these transactions? I think we had one of those, we chatted about this when you were talking about how Korean tourists would want to buy in, flea markets or Changgis, the things that they can bring home, but they don't have cash.
Yes. A typical tourist coming in, if you're from outside, you would have a credit card. All of us, when we go around, we always use the credit card. But apparently, the Philippines is It's a cash-based economy, and we may be losing our medium or maybe even small enterprise, like Legazpi Sunday Market. I was going around, so we have these small artisans going around selling art craft, and they told me that they're losing a lot of opportunities because they see a lot of tourists interested in buying their crafts, but their products, but they can't buy them because they don't have cash. It's always a credit card, and our vendors don't have these facilities. So I think it's an opportunity for us. We have to fast track the access of our small and medium enterprises, especially in the tourism sector, to be able to have these cashless transactions with our tourists. If you go to the provinces, if you go out of Manila, then you would encounter this problem. Your credit card, when you go around the markets or the public markets or the Changi, where they have good products, but apparently they don't have cashless transactions there. So we're losing a lot.
Our previous sessions, our earlier sessions, talked about starting a QR code by the third quarter, and I think the Globe president also addressed this, some of these issues earlier on. So with the changing, how is the typical tourist changing in terms of demographics, the profile of the typical traveler to the Philippines, ASEC, and how are you meeting, servicing that changing demographics?
If we're going to look at the visitors coming to the Philippines, number one would be Korea. Number two would be China. We have Japan. We have the U.S., Australia. These tourists are actually very active in their mobiles. And they would get information coming from their mobiles, smartphones. They would get they would book their travels via smart technology or by their smartphones. And the Philippines right now would have to adjust to that. If we want more Koreans coming here, we were talking with one travel agent yesterday, and I said, okay, if you're getting Koreans, what search engine should you invest on? It's not Google. They have their own search engine. They have Naver. So these types of information our locals should have, so that if they want their destinations to be popular to Koreans, then they have to enter blogs, they have to enter articles, they have to upload all of this information on Naver, not the typical Globe. So it will depend on your market where which technology or which search engine you're going to be using. And we have been doing this in the Department of Tourism. We are engaging different OTAs, the online travel agencies, on how to really provide information to our tourists so that if Filipinos here, if you think that Philippines is generally known in the world, travelers would say no. They don't know anything about the Philippines. Maybe they know Cebu, they know Boracay, and that's it. We have to do our share in trying to educate more people coming here. So we have a lot of people coming here. It's their first time to hear about the Philippines, but they're interested to go to Boracay. And that's good, because once they're in the Philippines, then they discover there's more than Boracay here in the Philippines. And I think that is one of our objectives, to show to the world that we have more than sun and beach here.
That is why you're working closely with companies, right? To promote. I mean, I've seen the Bee go and open in London, and it was a big promotion for the tourism. That's Jollibee, guys. So
yes. For the first time, I'm seeing. Well, I've been here for 40 years in DOT, but we have a lot of private sector approaching DOT. It's the reverse now. Before, we were approaching them to partner with them, and now they're seeing the brand of "It's More Fun in the Philippines" campaign, and they know that it's a very good campaign, and they are approaching us, offering us partnerships, and this is a very good indication, or it's an indicator that we have the buy-in from the Filipinos. The Filipinos would like to share what we have here to the world. And these big companies right now are investing with the tourism branding. And so we're co-branding right now. Tomorrow I'll be going to Davao, because they're also one mall is launching their own brand of malling. It's More Fun in the Philippines type of tourism, because they know that one of the tourism products that we would like to sell is leisure and entertainment, and part of that is really shopping. So shopping experience the Philippines way is actually relatively new, but I think that we can encourage more people to come here if they know the shopping experience here in the Philippines is at par with the rest of the ASEAN region.
Just circling back a bit, Asek Robbie, to you mentioned online travel services. With the advent of many of them, have they managed to bring down the cost? Which is, of course, a big factor in getting people to travel.
Yeah. We're looking right now at... we always say that technology levels the playing field. But we in the Department of Tourism are encouraging our hotels, the small accommodation, transportation, all of these enterprises, tourist enterprises, to shift towards digital marketing, or accessing their customers or their visitors or would-be clients via digital technology. But there's a lot of challenges still in this area. Like if we go to the areas outside of Manila, they may encounter poor infrastructure. So connectivity may be, I'm not saying is a problem, may be a problem in certain areas. That's why they could not access, they could not have a good connection in terms of the websites but a lot of our accommodations right now are shifting to the most popular site that we have here in the Philippines, Facebook. We have a lot of enterprises, both, let's say, legal and at the same time the underground economy maybe, you could say, are engaged in Facebook. You could check your Facebook. You could see a lot of, do you want to go to Boracay? Here's my package. But ask them if they have a license. Ask them if they have a Department of Tourism accreditation or a license. Most of them would not have that.
And that's a tricky thing.
And that's a problem because us in the tourism industry, we always would like to ensure that our private sector would provide the best experience for our guests. And if we cannot regulate this, then we're scared. As DOT, we're scared that our tourists will encounter such poor experience that they will not come back here. That's why we are very much into the campaign of accreditation. That's one of the challenges that we have. It's easy to market, but all kinds of people can market, and we cannot control that now.
Yeah, that's it. That is really quite scary, Asek. You consider Seoul as a model smart city. What would be your candidate in the Philippines? And when do you see this happening or getting close to that level of Seoul?
Yeah, I remember when I was in Seoul a few years back, I just downloaded an app going around, and it was GIS based. So GPS coordinates, everything was there. I would just go around and just point to a building, and right in front of me, there's a description on what it is. And that made me very comfortable walking around, accessing all of the sites that I could visit via web. And I'm also looking at transportation. Maybe Seoul or Korea may have one of the best, if not the best, public transportation systems in the world, showing that they have this. You could know your trips, or you could plan your trips via your cell phone. But that's also possible in Hong Kong. That's also possible in Europe. That's also possible in Japan.
Can Manila ever get there?
Oh.
What would it take to get to Seoul level? I mean, apart from having our own BTS and Blackpink.
Yeah, that would be a challenge right now because a lot of our local government units still have to invest a lot of money for becoming smart city. My example would be like in Davao, we have a smart city concept there, but it's more on peace and security. So Davao City before partnered with one large giant, and we set up what we would call a integrated system there. So we have from the cell phones to the cameras to threshold levels on risks. We have it all there in Davao. So it's ensuring that the security of its citizens and the tourists are always the top priority. But looking at transportation, we still have a big transportation issue here in the Philippines. We need connectivity. We need more public transportation because our tourists are actually going into the public transportation systems also.
And of course, we won't achieve anything without the discipline of sustainability aspect. So we've seen the benefits of closure of Boracay to allow it to heal. And Thailand, I think, has done the same thing for some of its resorts. Do you have other candidates in mind for, a shutdown in other places, Palawan or any other
Yes,
place?
yes. Actually, yes. If you're going to hear the pronouncements,
We want to know
secretary.
now before we plan our vacation. Can you
Yes,
tell,
yes, yes. Okay.
give us the first dibs on that?
Now, a lot of countries are now congratulating the Philippines because of what we did to Boracay. Nobody thought that it was possible to close down Boracay, but we did it because we want sustainability. So we're now looking at Panglao. We're looking at Coron. We're looking at El Nido. We may be looking at maybe in Siargao. So these are the priorities of our Secretary and the Department of Environment and Natural Resources. We have to intervene so that the sustainability concept of these jewels of the Philippine tourism can be implemented. We're talking of we have to stop pollution. We have to stop encroachment of establishments to the public beaches. We have to stop maybe ensure that public transportation is there. The proper infrastructures for more sustainability is there. We have to do that.
So there you have it, folks. Panglao, Coron, El Nido. So better get to these places now. Siargao before the DOT will come down for a few months.
Actually, we're not talking of shutting down anything right now. We have entered.
Okay, sorry, I take it back. I'm not spreading
but
to
to protect you tourists, we will be shutting down those who are not complying with the environmental laws.
Okay, so you don't need to shut down the entire place, but you have to be proactive in managing those who are not.
Yes, I heard that department. Recently, we read the Department of Environment and Natural Resources has already issued cease and desist orders on certain, I think, establishments in El Nido. So they are going, those that are not complying to environmental laws, the Department of Environment and Natural Resources is now intervening and issuing them closure orders.
Yeah, so that you don't need to do what you did in Boracay. Okay. So the goal is to double foreign tourist arrivals to 12 million by the end of President Duterte's term in 2020. And ASEC Robbie says that goal is very attainable based on the latest numbers.
Yeah. For this year, we are looking at 8.3 or a target. And first quarter, we have already achieved 2.2 million. So just looking at the multiplication, but it's not that simple. But we're looking at for this year, the 8.3 million target is achievable. Once we know this, then going to the 2012 or 12 million target on 2022, it may seem a mission impossible for many, but us in the tourism sector, we are looking at it as very possible with the technology that we have right now. And earlier I said that the Philippines, many don't know the Philippines, but with the use of technology right now, I think we are going to be very aggressive in showing the world what we have here. So that it's more fun. In the Philippines, branding it has been launched recently, but expect by July, maybe we will be in all channels, all media by July.